6 days before the biggest fight of his life, Sugar Ray Leonard got knocked out. And he hid it from the entire world. Not raw, not he got hit with a good one. Out cold, lights out. His body went limp. And then he got up, wiped himself off, then walked out of the gym. And let the entire sport keep believing he had no shot in hell, while he sat on that one piece of information that would have changed every bet in Vegas. Here's what you have to understand about where this man was. He hasn't had a real fight in 5 years, and that one in 1984 against a journeyman named Kevin Howard. He got dropped for the first time in his entire career, limped to the 9th round stoppage, and then he retired on the spot because he said he didn't have it anymore. Before that, he retired because the doctors had to reattach his retina in his left eye. So a 30-year-old man with a surgically repaired eye, one fight in 5 years, who had never fought a single round at 160 pounds in his life, decided that the guy he wanted to come back for was Marvelous Marvin Hagler. 62 wins, 52 knockouts, 7 years as a champion, 12 title defenses. A man who wore a hat that says war on it and really, literally meant it. 50 sports writers got polled before the fight, and 46 of them, they picked Hagler. Leonard, he was a 7-1 underdog. And 6 days out in a private gym, a southpaw put this boy to sleep. So the question isn't whether it happened. Leonard admitted it on record. So why in the world did this man think the smartest thing he could do was possibly bury it? And how that decision ended up being the reason he won. Because there were 3 things that Leonard hid from Hagler at that camp. And by the end of this, you're going to understand why Marvin Hagler went to his grave believing he got robbed. Okay, March 10th, 1986. Hagler, he fights John Mugsby, and Hagler wins, knocking him out in the 11th round. But Mugsby, he gave as good as he got, swelled Hagler's right eye shut. Fight of the year. And sitting ringside that night, watching all of it, is a retired Sugar Ray Leonard. Leonard's own words on that moment, when I first made this announcement, people thought I lost my mind. No one thought I had a prayer. At the time, Hagler was the man. He was destroying everyone. But when I saw Mugsby give him problems, the bells and whistles went off. I saw that if you box him, you can beat him. Bob Arum, the man who promoted this thing, said the same. Said Leonard saw something that almost nobody else in boxing saw, that Marvin was aging, slowing up. And when Leonard announced his comeback, Bob Arum's words for the reaction was incredulous. That's the polite version. The real version is the entire sports world thought a man with a repaired retina was about to get killed in front of a live audience for money. So Leonard, he did what he does. He didn't train for a fight. He built a machine. And the first thing that he built was a lie. While the whole world was writing that Sugar Ray Leonard was fighting 4 unofficial warm-up bouts, what got described as top 20 type opponents. He went 4-0 and 2 knockouts. Nobody knew, not the press, not the odds makers, and most importantly, not Hagler. So every person doing the math on Leonard's ring rust was doing the math with the wrong numbers, including the champion. And that's not even the sneakiest thing that Sugar Ray did, that hint, because he also had a guy in Hagler's gym. Leonard, he sent a camp member named J.D. Brown to sit in on Hagler's open workouts. And Brown, he didn't just show up. This man went in full disguise, dyed his hair gray, horn-rimmed glasses. He sat in the back where no one looks at. And what he brought back was the fight. Brown noticed that Hagler's own sparring partners were giving him trouble because they wouldn't stand still. Hagler, he wanted to fight in a phone booth. They would pop, move, alternate, and frustrate him. And he noticed one more thing. Every time that the round started, Hagler would walk to the middle of the ring and just stand there, waiting and marking his territory, a psychological thing. So when you got off your stool, he was already there. So Leonard's camp decided, we're gonna beat him to the middle. Brown, he even put his arm around Hagler at the autograph line and had somebody took a picture of the two of them just to prove he'd been there. Hagler, he didn't find out until Sports Illustrated printed the photo after the fight. Hagler, he didn't speak to J.D. Brown for almost 30 years. Now, Leonard's camp, he brought in a sparring partner to specifically play the role of Hagler. Same build, same aggression, and most importantly, southpaw, because Hagler was expected to fight that way. His name, Quincy Taylor. And I need for you to know who that is because people hear sparring partner and think warm body. Quincy Taylor became the WBC middleweight champion of the world. 28 wins, 24 of them by knockout. The guy standing across from a retired man with a repaired eye, the punch, it didn't even travel far. That's the part everybody who was there remembers. A short left hand, and the way it got written up later, it connected with the force of a small explosive. It came off Leonard's chin violently, and you could hear it, the dense thump of leather hitting bone. And Sugar Ray Leonard, he went limp. Here's his own quote. This is him in his own mouth years later. He hit me so hard, I was out cold. I played it off so no one would know, but I was out. 6 days before a fight, nobody thought he could survive. A man got knocked unconscious, then stood up and acted like nothing happened, because if that got out, the fight was gone. The narrative was gone, and the doctors, they would have had opinions. The commission, they would have had opinions. His own corner would have had opinions. So he swallowed it. And Quincy Taylor, he said his own piece about it since 4 words. I helped him beat Hagler, and here's the thing, he's right. Because here's what Leonard was planning to do to Marvin Hagler. His words, the thing about it was, I was going to slug with Hagler. I knew my hands were faster, and he had a lot of scar tissue. I was really dominating all of my sparring partners, but that punch, it woke me up. Thank God for Quincy Taylor. Now sit with that for a sec. Sugar Ray Leonard, a welterweight, 5 years off, one eye held together by surgery, was going to walk into the middle of the ring and trade with the most feared middleweight on the planet because he had been beating up his sparring partners, and he liked his hand speed as well as Hagler cuts easy. This is exactly how fighters die, and the only thing that stopped him on earth from doing this was getting knocked unconscious by the one guy in camp good enough to actually do it. So he threw the plan in the garbage. 6 days out and built a new plan from scratch. Move, pivot, touch, get out, never been there. That's not a fighter adjusting. That's a fighter having an ego surgically removed by a left hand. But moving alone doesn't beat a champion. Not in Vegas and not on the cards. And that's where the 4th secret comes in. The one that has the fans arguing about this fight almost 40 years later. Before anybody even threw a punch, Leonard's team, they won 3 things at the negotiating table. A bigger ring, bigger gloves, and 12 rounds instead of 15. A bigger ring, it means more room to run. Bigger gloves means less damage when Hagler lands. And cutting 3 rounds off means you cut off 9 minutes of a pressure fighter's best work. The late rounds, runner's legs are gone. Leonard's advisor, Mike Trainer, exact position on it was, and I quote, 12 rounds or no fight. In Hagler's camp, they said yes to all of it because they thought this was free money. Leonard's own publicist said it flat out. They didn't care about the gloves. They didn't care about the ring. They thought Hagler was going to beat the crap out of this little kid. And then there's the stopwatch. J.D. Brown, he timed every round from the corner. At the 2:30 mark, cornerman Ollie Dunlap would shout one thing at Leonard, 30 seconds. And Leonard, he would erupt every round with flurries. Hands going all flash right in front of the judges. In the last 30 seconds, when the human brains remembers the most. Broadcaster Tim Ryan, he put it perfectly. Leonard understood that no matter what happened, that during the rounds, if you look great in the final 30 seconds, you make the judges forget everything before it. That's not cheating. Nobody broke a rule. That's just a man who figured out boxing isn't scored by what just happened. It's scored by what someone remembers. Now, the fight. April 6, 1987, Caesar's Palace, outdoors. Bob Bear, he called it the super fight. And for once, the promoter wasn't lying. In round 1, Hagler does something that nobody can explain to this day. He comes out orthodox. Hagler is a switch hitter. He's more dangerous as a southpaw. It's what Leonard spent the entire camp preparing for. It's why Quincy Taylor was in the gym in the first place. And he opens right-handed. Leonard later said, it shocked the heck out of me. It would have taken me longer to get adjusted had he fought as a southpaw. He didn't even hit me the first 3 rounds. Hagler lost the first 2 rounds on all 3 scorecards. Gone before he even starts fighting the way he actually fights. And Leonard was insufferable in the best way. Bolo punch in the 4th, stuck his chin out to mock him, stared the man down between rounds, and threw his hands up like he already won. Hagler snarled at him mid-fight to stop fighting like a little bitch. But Leonard, he doesn't bite because 6 days before this, a left hand from Quincy Taylor taught him exactly what happens when he decides to be brave. Round 9 is the one that everyone remembers. Hagler pins him on the ropes and just rings on him. Leonard covers up and then he detonates, comes off the ropes with a flurry, actually backs Hagler up. Gil Clancy on the call said Leonard was absolutely gritting his teeth. He wasn't hurting me, but he was throwing heavy punches because I was covering up. Then I released and let my hands go. He backed away and stopped without throwing punches. Round 12, Angelo Dundee gets in his face, slaps his thigh, and says 4 words. You've got 3 minutes. Leonard stands up and holds his gloves in the air and walks to the middle of the ring first because the man in the gray wig and the horn-rimmed glasses noticed 6 weeks earlier that it would bother Hagler. Split decision, 115-113 Hagler, 115-113 Leonard, and then Jojo Guerrera, 118-110. 10 rounds, 2 for Leonard. The card, it got shredded by everybody. Guerrera later admitted that he should have given Hagler 2 more rounds. He never judged another fight again. And here's the honest part, because I'm not gonna sit here and tell you Leonard clearly won. Press row was split straight down the middle. AP had Hagler by 5 points. Cosell, he had Leonard by 5 points. Sports Illustrated, they turned in 1 card for each man. Ringside, in real time, nobody agreed. Leonard landed more, 306 of his 329, 49%. Hagler, he threw more and landed fewer, 291 of 792. Hagler out-jabbed him, but nobody hit the floor. Nobody came close. It was close. It was ugly to score. And calling it a straight robbery isn't fair to what actually happened in there. What is fair is what came after. Hagler asked for a rematch. Leonard retired instead. 14 months later, Hagler retired for good. Said he was tired of waiting. 1 month, Leonard announced another comeback to fight somebody else. Hagler, he never fought again. He never got the rematch. Moved to Italy, and in 2011, he was still saying, real boxing people know I won. And one day, Leonard, he gonna tell the truth. And Angelo Dundee, the man who trained Leonard his entire professional career, 1.25%. He was so insulted, he refused to work for Leonard's corner ever again. And that was the last night they were ever together. So here's where it lands. The most celebrated performance in Sugar Ray Leonard's life, the upset of a generation, happened because a man who was about to get himself hurt got knocked unconscious in private by a future world champion and then lied about it to everybody he knew. He didn't win because he was brave. He won because 6 days out, Quincy Taylor took the brave right out of him. So tell me right now, was this a robbery or was it Hagler? Or Leonard? Pick one and put a score on it, and don't just say close. And if you think Leonard ducked the rematch on purpose, say that too, because some of you are already typing this shit. And look, if you call yourself a real boxing fan and you're not subscribed to this channel yet, come on, man, fix that shit. We're digging up the stuff the sport buried every single week. And speaking of buried, the gym tape, the leaked footage, the guy who got dropped in sparring, that's on your screen right now. Go watch it. Holla at your boy. Peace. I'm out.